Hey TGIF, and thanks for joining me today on Fridays with Flora. And today is mid-October, which means it's time. I know you're going to be upset about this, but it's time to get ready for Christmas. I know, we don't look, it's like sunny outside, we don't want to think about it, but the fact of the matter is we have to think about it. And especially me, because I sort of have a cookie problem. I'm going to show you a picture, and if you've been on the blog at all and follow the blog, you've probably seen some of my cookie plates on occasion. There's like sometimes some years, depending on what I can get in, 11 kinds, 9 kinds. This was 2013. So you can see there's all these different kinds of cookies, and what I do is I give them away to neighbors as gifts, to teachers, the teachers lounge, and especially to my current client roster at work. So, and also my boss and colleagues, and I mean, the list goes on. I also have, friends out of town I send a care package to. So there's a ton of cookies here, and there's just no way in the world you could possibly bake this many in a few days in December. So you have to start now. And it's super, super easy to do. So throughout the next few months, a couple Fridays, I'm going to show you how to get ahead of some of your baking by showing you how to perhaps, pre-make and freeze a thumbprint so you're ready to go, or a shape, slice and bake, or how to even get a biscotti at a really good spot so that you can just bake it off and cut them and do the final baking. So biscotti are usually a lot of work. So there'll be a handful from now till Christmas. And so today we're going to focus, we're going to focus on this little guy. It's our, it's a thumbprint, just a typical butter shortbread thumbprint. You can fill it with whatever you want. I tend to use it for a lime cream, like a lime curd, and then bake them. There's another thumbprint I make as well, and it's like a cornbread sage with a blackberry jam. So there's 2 thumbprint cookies I usually have on my plate. You can fill it with whatever you want. They're super easy to prep, and it makes baking on your big baking day around Christmas super fast. So come join me in the kitchen and I'll show you my shortcut. So like I said, this is a simple butter cookie, like a butter thumbprint. So what do we need? We need butter. I doubled this recipe, so we're gonna need 2 sticks. All right, just want to make sure I got all the butter off of the wax paper. I'm going to give this a quick mix, and then I'm going to add sugar. The butter was nice and soft, so it got real creamy real fast, which is nice. Sugar. We're looking for that nice fluffy texture. Now we're going to add some egg yolks. 2 egg yolks, in fact. And because this is a really simple, buttery cookie, we're going to need 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Now, this is a halvesy, so 2, the dry ingredients, which really is just flour and salt. There's not a lot of leavening in this, so that the thumbprints stay really compact. They grow a little bit, but nothing too crazy. So we're looking at 2.5 cups of flour. We're going to start with 1.5 and gradually work that in, and then we'll add the other cup. At this point, I want to scrape the sides. Okay, that's lightly incorporated. I'm going to add that other cup of flour because it's going to be hard to work in. And right before you do that, let's add a little bit of salt. That's about 1/2 teaspoon of salt. The mixer, I'm just going to take a spatula and start kind of folding it in a little bit so it doesn't go all over. All right, now that everything's really well incorporated, this is a shaped cookie, so this is the point in time where you need to think about your freezing. Now what I do is I pre-shape and create my thumbprints and freeze them on a baking sheet. Then pluck them off the baking sheet, put them in a Ziploc bag, label it, and pop it in the freezer. And then come bake time, you just fill them and bake them. So super, super easy. If you want, you can just freeze this blob right here. It's just more work on baking day because you're gonna have to defrost it, shape it, fill it. And when you're doing 10, 12 different kinds of cookies in just a couple days, that's, you know, it's just easier to pop them out of a Ziploc bag, throw them on a baking sheet, and get baking. So that's what we're gonna do. The other thing you need to consider when freezing is your freezer size. I have an old beater refrigerator down in the basement that I can put a pretty decent sized baking sheet in. And if you have a smaller freezer, you know, maybe you use a smaller baking sheet and just layer the shaped cookies on parchment. I'm going to lay some parchment down and I'm just going to shape and fill this whole sheet. These are balls yay big. And I'm just going to fill this whole sheet and then I'll show you how to make little divots. All right, we're all set. And yes, it looks crowded, but it doesn't matter because we're freezing, not baking. And I've got the back end of a wooden spoon and I'm going to create little indentations on these. I push and then I kind of do a little bit of a roll, but I also hold the dough with my fingers so it doesn't crack on the sides. All right, these bad boys are all done, so I'm going to take these downstairs and I'm just going to freeze them just like this for about, could even be really overnight if you want, if you don't have any more time, but a few hours will do. It's been about 24 hours, give or take. So basically, I froze these overnight. Yes, it's cold. This sheet is cold, but they're going to come right off of your parchment. And they're frozen little pucks. And come baking day, I'm just going to pull these out of the Ziploc bag, set them on a baking sheet, ready to go. And by the time the oven is preheated, honestly, these just need about 10 to 15 minutes in a warm kitchen, and they're going to defrost, and they're going to be ready to go. So grab a plastic freezer bag, preferably ones that have an area where you can write on, and just quickly, so they don't start defrosting and sticking to one another. And the parchment under these makes it really easy to pop them off frozen. Sometimes I use tin foil, and they don't come off as easily. They almost have to sit at room temp for a few minutes before I can pull them off. So if you've got extra parchment, I recommend using parchment. I know that's expensive, but honestly, all it was frozen, so if you want to let it air dry, you could probably reuse this piece of parchment. Now I'm going to fill these with a lime curd and bake them for some lime creams. I'm going to write for lime creams Christmas. I'm also just going to jot the date down just in case these get lost in the abyss of the freezer. And there you go. These are going to be ready to go. I'm going to pop them in the freezer, and come baking day in December, we're going to be rocking. So that's kind of episode 1 and episode 1 of the Christmas cookie freezing series. Next Friday I'll show you how to do a really cool slice and bake with some like 3 different kinds of flavors of dough pressed together to create like these really cool lines within a cookie. So stay tuned. I'll show you how to prep those. Thanks for joining me on this Friday. Bye.